running around all the time in your mind, but you're not free. I see you want to be grounded, grounded like thee. He is the vine and we are the branches. Understand that this is all about authority. You can be free. You can overcome. You can overcome. Up in heaven, angels dance 'cause they're free. Happy sing for eternity. Without God and His Son Jesus, everything is peaceful and rightness. Happy always doing His will. Happy always doing His will.
Awesome crowd, and y'all are so delightful and beautiful to look at. And it is season
13.
Episode 2. Okay, all you guys we've been talking about have been coming back in from the 90s. Now, this is significant and God's doing something amazing. But had you never left from the 90s, what would have happened to you? Well, we have a lineup tonight that might give you some idea of what would have happened if you had just stuck it out. Let's join Candace and Ted and I in welcoming a group that have done very well, went through in the 90s and never quit. Give it up. Give a hand for these guys.
You can be free. You can overcome. You can overcome. Up in heaven, angels dance 'cause they're free. Happy sing for eternity. Without God and His Son Jesus, everything is
Awesome group. Awesome group. Y'all look beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. My name is Therese Marie Jost, and I did my first class in 1998, and I was so excited. I mean, the moment I heard Gwen, I knew she was from God. I was overweight and miserable, and I lost about 25 to 30 pounds back in 1998, like 20 years ago. So I'm so excited. Tonight is exciting because you're gonna get answers to questions that you may have, and I just want you to know you can do this. It is so worth it to stick it out. It's so worth it just to hang in there and keep going, even if you mess up. Like Gwen was saying earlier, you just keep right on going. 20 years later, you can be thin. Praise God! Woo!
My name is Mark Jost. This is my wife, Therese, originally from California. I did this first weigh down class in 1998. I lost 30 pounds. This message is so much more than losing weight. This teaching saved our marriage because we learned how to love God first and love each other next. And we learned how to get along. And I love this message, this teaching too, because it's a message of personal responsibility where we learned we don't point fingers at the pan of brownies. We don't point fingers at the credit card because those aren't the things that make us overeat or overspend. It's our heart. It's our heart condition. So I praise God for this teaching, and if I can do this, you can do it too.
My name's Rachel McCauley. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and in August of 1994, some of the ladies in church introduced Weigh Down to me, and I had been a dieter since I was 11 years old. And the tagline at the time was, can you eat a candy bar and stop in the middle of half of it? And I thought, well, that's not really a diet, at least not that I had been on. And so in January of 1995, I took my first class. I've lost 70 pounds, and I've been married for 18 years. We've had 3 children. I've lost my weight. So it is for everybody in every phase of life. And if you're coming back, please come on back. We are ready to have you.
Hi, my name's Kent Smith, and I took my first weigh down class in 1999. I lost 40 pounds, took a couple of subsequent classes, lost 20 more for a total of 60 pounds. So that weight has been off almost 17 years. What a blessing that is. And a couple of things that stand out to me is when I was dieting, doing the yo-yo, I had to have 2 wardrobes. I had to have one for when I was big, and I had to have one when I lost a little weight. So if you put into practice the principles of weigh down, you'll have one wardrobe, because you will never have to have a fat wardrobe and a skinny wardrobe. It's always skinny. So we praise God. Praise God for that. And I don't guarantee a lot of things, but I do guarantee if you put into practice what you're taught, it will work and you'll keep your weight off permanently.
I'm Regina Smith, originally from Oklahoma, and I discovered Way Down through the Way Down diet book in 1998 and took my first class right after that. And I had struggled with my weight and had dieted for 20 years before that. So now to have 80 pounds gone for the last 20 years has been amazing freedom. The things that have changed besides the weight, of course, are the getting to pass it down to your children so your children will never have that pain. In our marriage, as Kent mentioned, we did this together. We found something we did together. It's like we always did those other crazy other things together. This we've stuck to and we've never gone back, not once. And one other thing that I think is so beautiful and unique is all of these people, they've said where they're from. We're from all around the country, and we all met one another back then. We're all still friends too.
My name is Lisa Peters. I'm originally from California, and 20 years ago, I made a phone call that changed my whole entire life, and it was that I needed to get into a class. And since that time, my weight came off. It was 20 pounds, and my whole life changed. In that class, our marriage was healed. I'm married to Cliff Peters. We've been married 33 years. Our marriage was healed. The way I parented my children changed through this program. I was in anger and depression and self-focus, and God has come back in and through a Way Down class for weight loss, took care of marriage, finances, life, family, business, how you interact with people. And like Mark said, you take personal responsibility. I learned to look inward, and I had no idea how to do that and make my own self change first. And I'm so grateful for Gwen Shamblin, who taught us how to love God first over the brownies, the credit card, the shopping, ourselves, and love God. And it's affecting our children and now our grandchildren. We have hope in how we're going to raise the next generation. And I'm so excited for you. Come along. If you've been sitting out there watching these You Can Overcomes and you haven't signed up for a class, we are so excited for you to come along and join us. So we'll see you soon, and may God bless you.
Good evening. My name is Cliff Peters, originally from California, and Lisa introduced me to Way Down in May of 1998. I lost 30 pounds at that time, and I took a Way Down class thinking I was in there to lose weight. It was actually heart surgery. It changed my life completely. It gave me a relationship with God. It told me that not only can I, but I must stop sinning. Changed my life completely. Changed the direction of my family, and it gave me hope for the future. And so I praise God for Gwen Shamblin. I praise God for a Way Down workshop. And if an old farmer from California can do this, you can too.
My name is Tish Dunn, and God allowed me to find Way Down overseas, of all things. My husband and I were in our first year of marriage, and I had been overweight all my life, started in 3rd grade, was very overweight. And so it was like a kiss from God. Our first year of marriage let me find Way Down. I lost 35 pounds, and I've had it off since then. God allowed me to carry triplets in 2003, so you can apply this whether you're not carrying babies or you are carrying a baby or more. And healthy pregnancy, coming right back down, just very healthy way of eating. My husband lost 70 pounds. You can apply this to every area of your life. I feel that besides the food and all of that, I was definitely a definite worrier and controller. And so I just was able to take these principles with the weight loss, but then also apply that to those areas. And it's so freeing, it's so encouraging, it's so hopeful. We have triplets that are 14 years old and they're not living a life of overweight. We've been able to pass this down to them. And so there is so much hope in this. So if I can do it, if our family can do it, you can do it. Get in a class and stay in a class. And then, we all sharpen each other. We're together all the time and calling each other. So it's such an amazing truth from the heavens. So you can do it.
Wow. My name is Jayne Dubois. I am originally from North Dakota, and I found Way Down in Memphis in 1995. At that moment, I was in deep clinical depression, in a pit of anger, hopelessness, self-pity, self-focus, had been over shopping, over anything. I had destructive relationships in my history. It was just a horrific time in my life. And then God introduced me to Way Down Workshop. I've lost 107 pounds. It's been off. I've stayed connected to classes ever since. This is 23 years now. God allowed me to have a baby. I have a 5-year-old. The weight came off after the pregnancy. And all I can say is, if I can do this, you can too. Don't give up. Rejoin the Spiritual Marines. Look forward to a whole new life and say goodbye to overweight. Say goodbye to the pain. Say goodbye to the misery and come along.
Awesome. The total of 450 pounds on this stage. Y'all are so rockin' cool after all this time. My goodness, that's amazing, is it not? Mm-hmm. And what a testimony of people that stuck with it. And then it didn't take them 20 years to lose it. They lost it, but they kept it off by sticking with the message. So you can do this too. We're going to stick it out and talking about answered questions, things that will help you to keep going. We've got a great group tonight. We have Debbie Blair, who's lost 110 pounds. We have Rhonna Rickman, that's lost 130 pounds. We've got Dawn Fisher, that's lost 70 pounds. And so they are going to help us tonight with a great Q&A to keep you focused. So let's welcome them to the stage.
You can be free. You can overcome. You can overcome. Up in heaven, angels dance 'cause they're free. Happy sing for eternity. Without God and His Son Jesus, everything is peaceful and gladness.
And this is an exciting group. So I'm excited to see how they answer this one. I'm going to take a little nap over here on the side while they all. Now, what I want you to know is that these guys answer questions all the time, day in and day out. And I want you to know that there's a very deep group of people. We had a good group on last week that do answer your questions all the time. And then it just keeps going. So these guys are professionals in what they do and are truly way beyond what the world is calling life coaches. They have truly helped hundreds and hundreds of people to understand what God is trying to get through to us. And there's a veil. There is a veil. And that's why you can't see it. There's information here, and we've lost the weight, but a lot of times you just can't see it. And then God uses the body of Christ to help. And so that's what we're going to do here tonight. So Candace has got a list of questions. Candace and Ted have a list of questions. Mm-hmm. And so that you all have submitted, and they're great questions. So I'm looking forward to seeing how everyone answers it.
This is exciting. It's an ongoing thread on the Way Down Facebook group page. So if you want to ask Gwen a question, we can keep that thread going. And then throughout the year, she'll do more of these Q&As. So these all a lot of them came from that Way Down Facebook group or from Gwen's Twitter account, where you could reply to her tweet. So make sure you're on Twitter. And you can also ask your question on Instagram if you want to, on any of those accounts. So do you want me to do the first one?
Please.
Okay, so the first one is, So we'll say two people, several people were asking this question, but we pulled Tiffany Kelly's and Tammy Shaw's, which basically was, how do you know for sure that you've lost all your weight and that you're at your naturally thin size? How do you know if you're at your right weight?
Okay. Don's got the mic, and let's hit it, Don.
I'll take a stab at that one. I'll start. And it's interesting, and it's detailed in the tablet. If you don't have that resource, I highly encourage you to grab it. But the way the body is designed is so genius, the way God put it together. Hunger and fullness, your body knows how much extra is on there, and it knows when it's at the right weight. It's not a number on the scale. It's not what you weighed as a freshman in high school. It's hunger and fullness, and your body will know when it's settled at that right weight. And there's peace in that. There's so much peace in knowing that.
That was a very good answer. Very good answer. So, okay. Well, the hunger and fullness is the answer. Men will average about 18 to 24% fat. Women average about 25 to 31. So women will have a higher percent of body fat on them. And so, but the body has been programmed, like Don's saying. The body's programmed and by God. And so it's not gonna wanna lose below a certain size. And if it did, then we would be turning everybody into anorexics, wouldn't we? And that's just not happening. So you just saw a stage full of 9 people that have, that look fantastic. And they've been doing this for 20 years, and their body has been the same size, like Kent was saying, one wardrobe. So it's not like they are yo-yoing 15 pounds, 5, 10, 15 pounds, and have 3 different sets of clothing in their closet. And we've all experienced the same thing, that we have got, it's one set of clothes, and we are still getting in them, and even though we've had them for a long time, they still fit. So there was something programmed, and so you stop losing. You just stop losing. But you will notice that it's a lot of times, the world will say you're too thin, perhaps, or they will wonder if you're sick, but that's because people are getting used to such large sizes, and they're all the XLs, XXL. I mean, it'll go now. I mean, it's enormous size clothing that was not there 15 years ago, maybe even 20. I mean, like, you didn't see that size clothing. You didn't see people that size serving plates. So our eyes have gotten bigger. And then if you go to Europe, in some of the places that people have stayed small, smaller plates, smaller servings, smaller utensils, everything. And yet we in this country have larger seats. The theater seats now have been redone to accommodate humans that weigh 350 to 400 pounds, or maybe more. I'm not sure what the capacity is on these new theater seats, and they're the size of a twin bed, a lot of them. I think I think it's a ploy to where they get you to go to sleep during the movie so that you have to go back and pay for it twice to get the plot. Well, the airplane seats, as you know, that people now will buy 2 seats to be accommodated in the airport. We have got evidence in every way that we are much larger, and yet when you look at developing countries, you look at countries that maybe never, I mean, they're still thin. I remember talking about this when I first started Way Down, because we grew up with the National Geographic magazine, and you would see people in tribes and different things like that. The bodies were thin, and you might have said, well, they're just athletic. but they were definitely thinner than, and a lot of people have gone back down to smaller than they were when they were in high school, because they were always overweight. They just didn't know. They just did not know. So if you're obsessed with your body and you are obsessed with your looks, I have run into people that will try to force losing more weight than what the body wants to, because of their own quirky, desire to look a certain way. And that's not good. And that would be just a form of anorexia nervosa, where you're looking at your body and you think you're overweight, but you're not. So it's a good idea, a good rule of thumb, is to ask those around you that you love that will tell you the truth and say, am I getting too thin, or does it, but the main thing is to go back in and listen. And if you are doing it wrong, then you could easily be gaining a little bit of weight when you weren't paying attention, and you are heavier than maybe God would have you, and you're more uncomfortable. So you can use being uncomfortable, maybe what people say, your own history, looking at National Geographic magazines and different body types and that type thing. But we are all individual. What God has made, we've been made in His image, and so we can go back in and see that it's smaller than what the world or what the Americans think, but it is not so thin that people are wondering if you're anorexic and that type of thing. So I think that should help some people, huh?
Absolutely. All right, our next question is from Fanita in Tennessee. Would you clarify the difference between burning versus rumbling? Is the burning sensation just head hunger or the beginning signs of hunger? Should the burning feeling be ignored?
Well, I do answer that question a lot, but usually there's only one person that I'm talking to. But I will try to answer it in front of all of you today. Gwen has taught us that our bodies were created by God, and that there's even science in some of the classes. If you get a chance to take some of the classes or read the tablet or read especially the intro in the basics, she teaches you about how your body is made. And so it's not really that difficult, because what I usually tell people is, don't worry, because everybody gets hungry. And Gwen has always taught us that even babies get hungry, and little kids get hungry every day. And so it's nothing to worry about or be afraid of. And of course, we usually have testimonies in every beginner class where people talk about getting hungry, so you get to hear about that. And when you're doing it, it's really, what she says in the basics class is you're just waiting. And so getting your mind off of it is a perfect thing to do. The tweet this week or last week was just about, pulling out something while you're waiting, and when you feel nervous or anxious, or you want something and you're not hungry, to pull something out and just read it and get your mind back up on God. That's the key. And then what does it feel like? Gwen's taught us that if there is acid in the stomach, it's gonna feel like a burning feeling, and it's high up. Stomach is, higher up in your body, not, super low down. And usually it depends on how much you've eaten the last meal. She's taught us that too. Like if you ate a big meal the day before, you may have to wait longer. And so, mostly just to stay calm and don't worry about it. And yes, if you feel a burning feeling, early on when I started Way Down, she taught us to look at the clock and wait 10 minutes and maybe pray, drink something. If it goes away, You can just wait a little longer. If it continues to burn, then go ahead and have something, and if it's not a convenient time, you could just have something small, and it'll go away in 10 minutes. So.
Good answer. Very good answer, Debbie. Very good answer. Does anybody want to add anything to this?
I'm in a Revolution class, and somebody had that question today, and the wisdom given back was a quote from the class, and the person said, it took 20 minutes, and I even forgot that I was trying to figure out if I was hungry or not. I just went, it happened so naturally, just that waiting, the idea of waiting, that give 10 minutes or just wait, 10 more or whatever.
I think they're great questions. I think that what people do though is they put so much into, hey, it's a burning sensation versus, hey, is it a full-on growl, or is this heartburn, or you'd have to have a full stomach for it to be heartburn. So it can't, some people do, because their sphincter at the base of the esophagus is so loose from just stretching it over the years from overeating, is one way to mess up that sphincter. There's a little muscle that stays contracted, and then for food to go through down into the stomach, it almost has to be pushed open. And so you have, there are stopping points. There's one at the base of the stomach. You have different sphincters that are stopping and starting things going on. Well, when you drink alcohol, alcohol can allow that sphincter to relax. And then, so if your stomach's really full, the acid, of course, the pH of the stomach's about 1.5. That'll burn a hole in your hand. It's very, very acidic and like battery acid. And so, if this, the tissue in the stomach is so thick that it's a mucosal lining, and it can handle that kind of acid. But when this reflux back into the esophagus is not prepared for acid. So it'll burn a hole in your stomach, in your esophagus, and can cause esophageal ulcers. But it can also, over a lifetime of just continuing to overeat and force food back into the esophagus, can cause cancer, esophageal cancer, and other conditions, none of which are wanted. Well, now, once you stop overeating and you're stopping when you're satisfied, then this whole, everything will heal. Your stomach will go back, it won't be so stretched out, and it can handle the amounts that and your sphincters might improve and get stronger if you're not overworking them or stretching them so much. All those things are wonderful. But again, I feel like people will make a lot to do about, hey, is this hunger or not? Hey, it's definitely, some people get shakes, they're prone to hypoglycemia, so they've overworked their pancreas, they've eaten too much. Diabetes is simply you've just overworked your pancreas, and it just can't make enough insulin for you, or it's so used to you eating so much that it goes, oh, they're eating. And so it'll just throw out tons of insulin. Insulin is a hormone, but it's a little gatekeeper that allows what you eat to get inside the cell. And so, if you've got too much glucose will go into the cells, and then you wind up with so little glucose in your bloodstream that you feel weird, or if you're overweight, and so that's hyperglycemia. If you are an overeater, and the reason why you get adult onset diabetes, and the reason why you can probably lose 10 to 20 pounds and you don't have it anymore, you can completely cure it. It's not like it's a disease. It's just you overworking the pancreas, which makes your insulin. The pancreas is located about right here under the rib cage. But this pancreas, it can only make so much insulin. And if you overate a big meal, then it doesn't have enough insulin to get that glucose, which is what everything turns into that you eat. It just runs it by the liver, and the liver turns just about everything into a glucose molecule. And it doesn't have enough insulin to get it into your cells, so your bloodstream is circulating all this glucose around and around, and that hardens your arteries and can cause strokes and things like that. As you know, if you get brittle arteries, then they don't expand like they should, so your blood pressure goes up, and because it's pushing the blood, because normally, your blood vessels they're loose and they can relax, and so that you can go back and forth like elastic. But when the elastic gets hardened, then your blood vessels are too tight and can cause damage. Also, if they're not working correctly, then you've got peripheral problems with your feet or your hands because the circulation may not work as well. You don't want adult onset diabetes from overeating, which should be, this is good information for people that need a deterrent or a little good fear of overeating. What am I trying to get at? That we will during the day hours, like really think, oh, is that hunger? Is that not hunger? Or those are good things to learn. You want to learn the feeling because you're getting internal control now. You want to be able to feel this urge to eat. And you want to know well what it feels like, go through it. But for the most part, you respond to it. You're hungry, it could be a burning, and it can go from burning to a growl, then back to just burning. It's just light amount of acid that's being released to make your stomach ride so that you will eat. Otherwise, you couldn't get kids to eat. Unless it's painful. Because they're going to go play. And so you got to have something that tells them. A lot of children go so far that they don't know why they have a headache. They don't know why they feel terrible. They don't know why they're crying. They don't know what's wrong with them, but they have bypassed hunger so many different times during the day that they are starving. And you say, are you hungry? And they don't know. They've not learned to recognize it, and so they've ignored it. But we're to listen to the internal controls. Why? Because we're a spiritual being, and it's the spirit inside. If you can't learn to listen to the inside of what your body wants, how are you going to learn when a spirit in the spirit man is telling you you're hungry for God, or you're hungry, you're how to listen to Him, how to tune into Him? If you're so in tune to what people think and what people are doing and what they need to, how they need to clean their life up, and listening to the news and listening to all this stuff, you're not paying attention. So all these are good questions, and you need to go there. However, what I find is they'll make much ado about this daytime hunger, and then at night, they're not hungry at all. It's not even a burning. It's not even near it. There's nothing at all. You may feel tired, you may feel bored, you may feel anxious, you may feel fearful, you may feel giddy, or I don't know, all kind of emotions, but it isn't hunger, it isn't burning. And what do? You open up the refrigerator and you eat your way all the way into a binge. And so please don't strain out the gnat and swallow a camel with this. If you think it's hunger, well, just experiment with it. Look for satisfied and go on. But everybody, if you went through all of the way down classes and all of them, it is its focus is trying to get you, for the most part, to listen in. And when there is no burning and it's possibly, you would have to have a full stomach for it to be heartburn. So if you've eaten and it's burning, that's not hunger. That's your esophagus, it's food, so much food that you've sat down and it's pushing its way back up the esophagus. I mean, don't eat during that. But in the evening, everybody out there in those 51 classes and all the people from around the world that are not in a class that are still doing this, or you're reading the book, or however you're finding this information, please, I tell you, get ready for the night. Get yourself completely ready to say no to head hunger, to desire eating, to greed, because greed is idolatry, and that idolatry is not listening to God. It's worshiping everything out there but Him. Worship God, everybody, and just don't eat if the body is not calling for it. Focus on God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. You just talked a lot about, you had touched on some of the diabetes, and of course there's a lot of, questions about diabetes. Here's one in particular. Tammy asks, what would you suggest for people with type 2 diabetes? Is it okay to eat all things in hunger and fullness? So I guess all kinds of foods, maybe she's asking?
A variety is essential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the one thing you couldn't do in type 2 diabetes when you eat would be maybe just a single food. So obviously, you eat the protein and the carbohydrate, the fat. You just get the variety, like you were taught. I mean, anybody that has diabetes, they go through a few lessons, but you get the variety. And a lot of times, if you feel something coming on that's like it's cheese. I don't know. I mean, there were so many experiments, though. So much is so crazy. I mean, just I always have crackers and cheese or something like that. It's always a great place to start, but. I mean, I remember these incredible studies done where people are trying to figure out if you ate table sugar, would that get into your system faster versus a sweet potato or versus, and I mean, how fast the glucose hits the system is just not a big concern of mine. So just eat something and then, get yourself calmed back down. Rest for a second. It doesn't hurt to really be still and let the body, get some glucose back into the bloodstream if you have hypoglycemia. And so type 2 diabetes, your problem is you're spilling glucose into the urine, because you've got so much. You've just got to lose weight and you won't have type 2 diabetes. You want to go back to the doctor and for them to take you off your oral hypoglycemic agent and to be back to normal. Let's lose weight because your pancreas will be able to accommodate your smaller amounts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next question is family related, and Donna in Colorado asks, how do you respond lovingly to friends and family who try to sabotage your efforts? And how do you reassure a spouse who's sad because he's losing his eating buddy?
I think the key in that question is the word lovingly. I think to maintain that loving attitude in the response. But as you indicated just a few minutes ago, this is about a relationship with God. And that's where your devotion is. And I think what'll happen is the fruit is undeniable. So you'll start to get some different attention if you'll just keep putting it into practice and keep staying devoted to the teaching, to God, and to listening to His lead, and find other ways to be a buddy to your spouse. There are other things that they're interested in besides eating, and if you find those things and get excited about those things with your spouse, then you've found a new interest that you can do together. It's like someone in the lineup said earlier, they did this together, and it replaced everything that they had been doing together before. So, but I think, stay devoted to God first, and then just watch what He'll do with those relationships as you put this into practice.
Beautiful, beautiful.
what I always loved about, Gwen was always 5 steps ahead of questions like that when we were taking the class and losing our weight, because we would get remarks from people like, wow, you're losing way too quick, and things along those nature, something to put doubt in your head. Like, am I doing this correct? Meanwhile, I felt great. I mean, Gwen's like, tap into the Spirit of God. Do you feel great? How much better are you feeling every day? And so it would depend at work when I'd get questions like that. I'm like, no, I'm doing great. I feel great, stronger than ever, and thank you so much, and for even, thinking about me, all that kind of thing. But you would get people that would always want to feed you when you were around them. And so I always loved how you said, if you're having a special eating event, somebody's preparing something for you, they love you, they want to, this is the way they're giving to you. Well, think ahead. I mean, like, hey, if I knew I was going to a dinner party at 6 o'clock, I would purposely, if I got hungry at noon, I would have the smallest, like literally like one of those little cheese and crackers, you know what I mean? And then get on with my day, knowing that I would get hungry as I was coming down if I had something really, really tiny. And even if that was the case, even if, on these rare occasions, I'd take a bite or two. And I always loved how you said, look, get in the conversation. You're representing God, love on him, serve. And half the times they don't even know if you're moving your food around, and they're not really eating it. But then you're like, it was delicious. I just wasn't that hungry. Can I take it home though for tonight or for tomorrow if I get hungry tomorrow, when I get hungry tomorrow morning? And so always thinking about other people's feelings and loving on them. But at the same time, if you respond in love and you just say, I'm doing great, I feel great, and I'm just not hungry at this moment, I just don't feel hungry. For the most part, I would get a person maybe say something to me once or twice, and then after you loved on them, like by the second time, they were like, all right, this isn't getting anywhere. I can't force somebody to eat food, but at the same time, because Gwen was teaching us to be so careful and thoughtful for other people's feelings, you would plan around those events as well to make sure that, hey, if my husband wants to eat at 6 o'clock every night, then I am gonna make lunch incredibly small because I know he'll wanna have some food with me in the evening. And it worked. My body got, it would change to different environments, and it changed the times that I wanted to eat. And so, but I think it was what Don said, just about being loving. If you're thinking about them and putting their mind at ease, but in the end, you got to obey God. You can't, I couldn't worry ultimately if someone was going to tease me or tell me that I was losing weight too quick, because no one ever said to me, hey, you're gaining way too fast. You know what I mean? No one said anything to me when I was gaining my weight, literally. Even the doctor when I went in told me I had 10 pounds to lose. And I had 55 pounds to lose. So everyone's scared to tell you that, but they were convicted. I think a lot of times people are just like jealous or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And so just it's that loving response, but of course, keeping your focus up. But I feel like those occasions, even then, I don't think it's not a constant barrage of every day. For the most part, there's tests that are set up for us. And if you keep passing it, it'll go away.
Mm-hmm. That's a great answer, beautiful answer for both of you. In Acts chapter 4, when they called them in again and commanded them not to speak or teach in the name of Jesus, but Peter and John replied, judge for yourselves whether it is right in God's sight to obey you rather than God. We can't help but speaking, he goes on to say, about what we've seen and heard. We can't help it. We can't help but speak about it. But so that balance, like Ted and Don are talking about, of making sure that you're being tested by God to see, are you going to shy back and not share where you heard it from, or like to be able to maybe tested to see if you'll stand up for the truth. Because it's all about this. This is not just one thing you're being tested in, but it's a whole lifestyle of loving God with all you've got. And so be expected to be tested and then come through, like you said, lovingly with this. And those are great answers. He didn't say, take the food and the peas and put it under the plate or hide it under the table, or, if they pick up the plate and they see where all your food went, you can carry it out with you, So that's what you did when you were a kid, when you were asked to clean your plate. And so you would have like little napkins. Your parents weren't looking. You put it on your sister's plate.
Keep the dog next to you.
The dog was always helpful. But yeah, it is, they worship food. People worship food. They're losing, they feel like they're missing something. So Dawn's answer is awesome. Finding something else there is huge. And then once you get all the way down, a lot of it is because you keep, not only did you change your size, then you bought new clothes, then you changed your hair color, and then you changed, quit changing. Just try to not shock everybody. And once you stabilize in your weight, people get very, very used to it. And so they don't notice it anymore. You become just a fixture or a piece of furniture. Nobody pays any attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one is from Lori in Ohio, and a lot of people have questions about sweets. And she says, I have tried to teach all my kids hunger and fullness, but my 7-year-old girl says she never knows when she is hungry, even when I hear her tummy growl. She said she isn't hungry. She is a normal weight, and often she waits for dessert.
I have a granddaughter that's like that, and I've actually seen her turn blue in the lips, where we were like, give her some Coke, she needs to, But anyway, as far as sweets go in the tablet, I can read a little bit about that. Gwen talks about how sweets, when I answer questions, I go to, the tablet and search. And so and I have it on my phone, so you can just go in there and put the word sweets in there. And then it'll come right up and you can read. And she says, what about sweets? Sweets are made by God for the enjoyment of mankind. And Proverbs 24:13 says, eat honey, my son, for it is good. Honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. God made the sweet to adorn the food, your bagel in the morning or icing on the cinnamon roll. Internal control will direct people toward high carbohydrates in the morning. However, these are digested quickly, so children and those with active jobs need to eat eggs and bacon along with the carbohydrates to keep them satisfied until lunch. The fact is, rarely are you going to eat a sweet that is absent of fat or protein or something in it anyway. It's a mixture. So I would say, as far as children go, I know Gwen has said, wait until they're really hungry and offer them a variety of regular foods. I remember in the last Exodus, she had some children go to the door and open the pantry, and she said, what looks good? And some people chose sweets, some people chose snacks, and some people chose fruit, and she was like, there's, all kinds of goodies in the refrigerator, like carrots and so I know that offering them a variety is always good. And she's always taught us all, especially because I was actually a child who was very drawn to sweets. And so I was the one who was standing by the cake table. And you know how like when they're serving the cake, there's this little icing right there, and you just kind of go in there and get it and eat it, right? So I understand that. And so it's really helped me personally to, when I first started Way Down, to save sweets for the end. I know Gwen said with her own children that she wouldn't offer sweets at the end of the meal even, and maybe it would be like at a different time of the day. So those are some good ideas that I've learned.
Right, and that's it. I mean, and then, just with vegetables, you fix a platter up of vegetables and everything and put it down the middle of them, whatever they're doing, and then just say, these are for the adults, don't eat it. And then, the next thing you know, they're consumed. But no, with children, what they're doing, obviously, they're turning blue in the lips and all that. I mean, they were brought up with no foods. So they didn't have they didn't have a parent. The parent was telling them that sweets are bad or whatever. So they've learned to sneak them. The kids they'll sneak them, they'll be crafty, they'll find a way. They'll say they're not hungry, then they'll sneak around and go grab the sweets. One way or another, you've taken a food and glorified it, so to speak, by telling them, you can't ever have it or it's not good for you. God didn't, if you'll notice children that are brought up like with just the normal, like, hey, here's foods and here's sweets and you can have sweets and that type thing, but you don't, you allow some of it at the end of the day or whenever, but you don't, it's not a reward, but it's also not a no food. You're just normal with it. They know that they can get it tomorrow, then they can get it the next day. They don't have to sneak it behind your back. Then they will be normal with sweets. So you've got to reverse that, and then also with the children, they want the sweet so badly that they'll wait as long as they can. They don't care about that growl. It becomes a very much obsession with them to get that sweet. So go back in there, break the cookies in little tiny amounts. They have tiny little Oreo cookies. They've got M&Ms. They've got tiny little units, and just teaching them the way down way of how to eat a sweet so that they can learn to not cram it down behind your back. And then you find these kids, it'll be a nightmare if you don't watch out. So just go back and say, okay, we're gonna have sweets today. Just right now, let's try these things. And then go play and then come back in and we'll have some sweets or something like that. So just go back to making it normal and then so they don't have to hide it. That's again, I've seen that in the end backfire on the health of the child and their weight and everything.
Mm-hmm. There's also a great TV show that you did on the Remnant TV. If you go, you can see the archive episodes, and one's called How to Stop Binging on Sweets for an adult if they feel like they're obsessed with them. That's a really good resource. That's a really popular one that people watch. I see it gets posted on the Facebook page a lot. So
well, this covered a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good number of questions to stop now. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to binge out on the TV show. You know what I'm saying? There's always a balance of everything. Mm-hmm. And so, but these are great questions. Y'all keep them coming. And now you see these guys are well equipped and they know where in the books, they know the answer, and they themselves have lost their weight and kept it off. These are just incredible resources, and I want to thank you all so much for all you do. And it's every day, day in, day out. Debbie Blair's probably counseled more people on this planet in Way Down than anybody. Mm-hmm. And then Don, he does an incredible job with all the men and helping them to lose weight. Rhonna Rickman is the biggest cheerleader on the planet. And of course, Tedd and Candace, what can you say about such awesome people? So praise God for all these people.
Thank you guys.
You can overcome. Up in heaven, angels dance 'cause they're free. Happy sing for eternity. Without God and His Son Jesus, everything is peaceful and lightness. Happy always doing His will. Happy always doing His will. Overcome. Up in heaven, angels dance 'cause they're free. Happy sing for eternity. Without God and His Son Jesus, everything is peaceful and lightness. Happy always doing His will. Happy always doing His will. Overcome.